definition of coaching is helping people achieve their level of awesomeness.
Coaching from the desert. 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 Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Coaching from the Desert, your official podcast of the International Coaching Federation, ICF Arizona chapter. I am Dave A. Cornelius, affectionately known as Dr. Dave. And today we're exploring life before and after strengthening your mental fitness with positive intelligence, which we call PQ. You know, before PQ, many of us were stuck in the grip of saboteurs, self-doubt, stress. We want to be perfect, avoidance, or even the relentless pursuit of achievement. And, that's me, constantly in that space. And sometimes we're just negatively hijacked. Our minds, negativity just takes over our minds. We have anxiety, procrastination, or even the need for external validation. We react impulsively, struggling with relationships, and sometimes we just feel drained rather than fulfilled in life. But then something shifts. We learn about PQ, positive intelligence. We learn to recognize, those saboteurs that weaken, that weaken ourselves and our minds and just even the quality of our lives. So we develop our sage powers, empathy, curiosity, creativity, and resilience. So instead of being overwhelmed by stress, we respond with clarity. Instead of fear, we lean into purpose. Mental fitness transforms the way we lead, connect, and live. So today, we're going to explore how to move from self-sabotage to self-mastery. And I hope you're ready to build your, mental fitness. And my friend Alicia McLean is our PQ expert who will help us today. And she's been, my peer coach, and she's been mentoring me through this whole mental fitness. So, hey, let's bring Alicia in and welcome Alicia and let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that introduction, Dave. This is fun being out here coaching in the desert.
That's right. And I love the fact that you are a traveling coach.
Yes, I am. As a matter of fact, that was actually part of what I put as my 30-second elevator pitch. The
Well,
traveling coach, the digital nomad.
That's right. But before we even start that, are you singing for us today, or are you going to share a phrase or statement?
Oh, not singing. Nobody wants that.
Uh,
But you know what? Here's the thing. I have a quote that I picked up in 2024, and I love this quote so much. So one of my hobbies is watercolor painting. So I paint like this little watercolor like background, and I put this quote on it, and I send it to people like in either thank you notes or birthday cards or what. I mean, that's like the gift I'm giving people is this
yeah.
particular quote along with a reference to the book. So the quote is this: boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. And this is by author Prentice Hemphill, the
Mm,
author of What It Takes to Heal. And here's what I love about this quote. It's not about it's not punitive, it's not about armor, it's about love. And it's
yeah.
about
Oh,
loving on both sides of things.
I just love that. I
Yeah.
love that a lot, and
Yeah.
maybe I'm gonna have to go ahead and capture that and share that out. I may have to
Yes.
steal it. How's that? Or use it.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I love that one because you know what? Here's the thing. All of us at some point have issues with boundaries.
That's right.
In the mental fitness space, if you have a pleaser saboteur, you're often you're often really the person that struggles with boundaries. But any of us can struggle with boundaries at any time, and we need to be. And when we think about this concept of boundaries, we want to think about it from a loving place.
Without a doubt. So good. So let's do that 30-second elevator pitch so we could jump into our questions. I'm encouraging people to post questions for you on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Even though we're streaming in other platforms as well, but this is the main one we're going to spend a lot of energy. So let's hear that 30-second.
Yes. So I'm Alicia McLean, explorer, creative, connector, organizational whisperer, and mental fitness coach. I'm a wife, a doggy mom, and a digital nomad, and I love to hang out in the national parks and the state parks. That's me in a
That's
nutshell.
you, and that's real, you know.
It is real. I am living that great story because you know what? You only get one time around this bend.
You know, and it's always so cool that, you know, as you're being this nomad, you know, you show up in the town that I live in, and we get to see each other, right? We used to see each other when we were in California. Now we
Yep.
get to see each other as you come through here once or twice
Yep.
a year.
Yeah, and I love it. You know, as a matter of fact, when we leave here, we're headed back into California for a very brief stop, and then we're going to head out to into Palm Desert. My cousin lives out in 29 Palms, so I'm just like bringing it together a bunch of people. We're going to have a big old party at his house on the 12th. So you know, you get a chance to just roll with it and connect with people. We were just in Michigan just this last year. I got to see one of my sorority sisters. I got to stay at her lake house. So I mean, it really has been such a joy and such a blessing to be able to be flexible, nimble, and moving around to see people and stay connected.
Yeah, so thank you very much for connecting me in with PQ and keep poking at me for a whole year.
Do it, do
Poking
it,
at me.
do it, do it, do it, do
Yeah,
it.
you know, our friend John Jorgensen also told me that you were also the person who got him into PQ as well.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's so interesting because I got in, so I was already a coach. I was already an ICF coach. And this came up and it was in December and it was like right at the time of the year where I usually shut my business down and, kind of, try to get things in order for the next year. And so my ability to get into the program that you're talking about up at that time. And that to me was like the worst time. But my other colleagues were like, just get in, let's just do it. So I can really appreciate that, sometimes you feel like it's not the right time, but it actually is. And so get in there and get it done. I'm so glad for you.
Yeah, so am I. So let's talk about the definition of mental fitness. You know, what is that?
Yeah. Here's the thing that's so interesting about this. Over the course of our life, we understand very clearly what physical fitness is. This idea that, eat right, exercise, build muscle. We understand these concepts and we grow up understanding these concepts. We do not understand mental fitness. Mental fitness is our ability to handle and address life's challenges from a positive rather than a negative mindset. And this is not just about like toxic positivity where you like clench your jaw and you're like, everything's fine. Right. It's not that face. It is not that, right? It is about our ability to actually reframe in the moment whatever experience we're having so that we could see more possibilities, see more options for ourselves, and turn down the volume of that hardwired mental chatter. We've got the inner critic, we've got, imposter syndrome thinking, we've got, people say this all the time, I'm in my head. Well, when you're in your head, that's not usually a positive thing, right? And so, how do we address getting out of our head and turning down the volume and the negative impact of that?
Well, no, that's excellent. So now that we have a definition, you know, what about the strategies of how we go about leaning into mental fitness?
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's three muscles to build mental fitness. The first one is basically called catching your saboteurs. And I always tell my clients, you cannot catch what you can't see. And
Mm,
so I invite them to take the assessments. As a matter of fact, I don't know if there's show notes here, but we could put that stuff in the show notes.
yeah, yeah.
I invite people to watch the TED Talk first for context, and then take that assessment so that you can understand the structures of your thought habits, patterns, and thinking systems. And so that's the first strategy is to take the assessments and understand what it is you're trying to catch. The second strategy or the second muscle to build is about it's called energizing your sage brain, but it's really more about um, the essence of it is becoming present because there's no suffering in the current moment. That's another great quote by Eckhart Tolle. There's no suffering in the current moment. And so if you're like out in front of yourself, freaked out about what's going to happen and something that hasn't happened yet, or you're ruminating about something that hasn't that happened in the past, you're not present. And so the second muscle to build are those strategies for getting grounded and present. The third muscle to build is that sage toolkit that you mentioned. And so it's all those powers of curiosity and innovation and creativity and taking action and empathy. So if you think about narrowing it down, the three strategies are the three muscles to build for mental fitness.
Yeah, that's excellent. So, I went ahead and just grabbed, the URL for people to go out and take the assessment. It's a wonderful thing. And they could connect with you or I after this, and we could have conversations about, what this
Absolutely.
means to them, right?
Yeah.
And
I
that's
highly recommend that when people take this assessment and get this results, that they do connect and at least have a debrief with a coach that understands positive intelligence and
yeah,
mental fitness, because the report that they get back is going to talk to them about the thought habits and patterns that they have. They're all saboteur. And so what can happen is you could read that and you could be like, oh, I knew I couldn't get rid of that pleaser. I knew I can't get rid of that avoider. And then you just start beating yourself over the head and making it worse. So
yeah,
definitely connect with your mental fitness coach, your positive intelligence mental fitness coach after you take that assessment.
excellent. I mean, so as a coach, how does this whole mental fitness enhance coaching?
Boy, what a great question. And I have such a great example of that from a client that I'm working with right now. So the way that this enhances coaching, and I tell my clients this up front, when we lay a foundation of mental fitness for their coaching, meaning they've taken the assessment, they understand what their top saboteurs are, they understand the positive side of those and the techniques for turning the volume down on them. They get to their outcomes faster.
Yeah.
Right. So if I understand that I have a high hyperachiever, which I do, a high hyper rational, which I do, or a high restless, which I do, that's my top three, right? So when I understand that, I can now catch those saboteurs and I can get to my outcomes that I set for myself for coaching, the top three things I want to get out of coaching, I can get to them faster because now I know, aha, that's just mental chatter. Aha, that's just saboteur yakety yak. I can turn the volume down on that. And I mean, it's a game changer. It is a game changer. I have coached before being a positive intelligence coach and now as a certified positive intelligence coach. And I was in like the first 200 certified coaches. So it's a game changer, and I've seen the transformation of people using this as a foundation for their coaching.
No, and I can attest to that because I just went through the program for 7 weeks and started a little group with people that I have coached and people who want to be coaches. And you know, they have given nothing but positive feedback about the experience and how they plan to use this
That's
this
great.
this practice of PQ going forward. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was this? What challenges did you have, or as a coach that prompted you to go like, yeah, mental fitness practice. I should take that on.
It's funny. It's I don't this just kinda landed in my lap.
Okay.
I was doing some pro bono coaching with an organization, and the founder of that organization knows Shirzad. And
Hmm.
so he just said to his coaches, "Hey, this thing is going on, and if you're a coach, you can go through this program, and you have an opportunity to get trained in this concept." And I was like, "I have spent a truckload of money on other certifications. The fact that I can go through this program as part of their 100x, offering and not have to, as a coach, don't have to pay for that. I'll take it." So it wasn't like I was having challenges honestly, I think at the point when I came to this, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like I was having any challenges. But now that I understand this and the impact of this, like I said, it's a game changer.
No, it certainly can be. I could see it. It's saboteurs over here on the left, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Sage
Sage over
over here
here on
on the
the right.
right.
You
Right.
know, you get that thing going on. So it has been really helpful to be able to catch them and identify them and go like, hey, there's a gift and opportunity here. What am I doing about
Absolutely.
that? Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So how do you measure progress in mental fitness?
This is a great question because one of the things that I love about this, so there's two assessments. The first assessment you take gives you a ranking. That's the one that you put up in the URL. That gives you a ranking of the thought habits and patterns that show up for you out of the nine that are possible, that
Yeah.
show up for you in the frequency that they show up, right? So the top three are those ones that show up the most. So some people will take that assessment again to see if there's been any sort of change to what's in their top three. I don't know that I necessarily recommend that, but the way to measure if you're seeing an increase in your mental fitness, and I've had some clients see dramatic increases in their mental fitness, is if you take that second assessment. That second assessment is what I call the PQ baseline,
Right.
and that gives you a numeric score between 0 and 100 that tells you how often your mind feeds you positive information over negative information. And if you have a score, lower than 75, that means your mind is just whipping you with more negative information. Above that, your mind has more of a balanced approach of feeding you information. And so oftentimes I encourage my clients, if we have a 6-month contract, I invite them to take it at the start and then take it either monthly or take it at a midpoint and then take it at the end. And so it's that way that they can measure the increase in their mental fitness.
Good. So we could actually see some outcomes in our measurement.
Yes. Yes. And
Good.
that's the outcomes and measurement, right?
Yeah.
I can tell by the tone in people's voice how that has changed, how the weight that they came into coaching with has been lifted. These are all anecdotal, right? So I don't have
Yeah.
like a measurement, but I can tell the shift. It's like it's phenomenal. And I feel so grateful and so honored to be people's guide in this work.
Yeah. And, big responsibility. So what changes have you really observed in coaching after focusing on mental fitness? Because we go through coaching school and we learn how to coach in one way, and we go through all these different programs and give them lots of money. And I go lots of
Tons,
money to learn
tons
different.
of money. Yes. Well, here's what's interesting. One of the things that Shirzad says, Shirzad is the founder of this work. One of the things, and he was an original CEO. I don't know if he's the original CEO, but he was a CEO of CTI in the early days.
Mhm.
The coaching. What does CTI stand for? I forget what it stands for.
I can look it up.
Yeah, well,
I'll look it up.
The CTI group, I'm sure you can look it up and put it here in the show notes or whatever,
Yeah.
but CTI was one of the original OG coaching organizations that partnered with the International Coach Federation to even put together coaching standards and the markers by which we have to get our certification these days. So they were original founders in this work. And so Shazad was connected with them at a time when coaching was going through the certifications and becoming more of a trusted and ethical practice. And I don't know how long ago this was, but today his aim with this model with coaching as positive intelligence as a framework is to shift the way we coach, because he's like, the way that we've learned how to coach, and the way that we're taught to coach when we go through these ICF certified programs, that model and that method using those PCC markers has been around for like 30 or 40 years. He's like, we need to do an upgrade, an update on that. So one of the things that oh, look, we've got somebody joining us. That's great. One of the things that we see that's a difference is the way that the coach engages using the PQ blueprint. And you and I haven't used, well, you and I have used it, but I haven't like made it plain. Dave, this is the blueprint I'm using,
Yeah.
but there's a whole blueprint, and I will tell you, it feels very different from how I learned how to coach. What I notice about this is it feels like it's like you're more of a guide and
Yeah.
guiding people through a process different from what you learn when you learn how to coach, which is, the PCC markers and that approach.
Yeah. And so what I found is that So we're talking about Coactive Training Institute.
Yes, thank you. I could not think of the name of that. Yes. And I'm telling you, I have mad respect for them. They have been around for years. And like I said, Shirzad was a CEO of that. And I don't know if you are familiar with ORSC, Organization
Yes,
Relationship and
yes,
Systems
yes.
Coaching. The ORSC is a cousin to CTI. So Faith and I can't think of the other woman's name. Faith and Marita, they split off from CTI to create ORSC. So all of this is sort of in the original days of the development of an ethical practice around coaching with structure and certification, so on and so forth. And so all of it's kind of together. And so actually, if you know anything about CTI and if you've gone through CTI, part of what's in the positive intelligence playbook may look familiar, particularly with the concept of saboteurs.
Yeah, yeah. Because when I was going through original coaching, you're in the agile space. Everyone before ORSC, everyone was doing coactive.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
many people were anyway.
Yep,
And
a lot of people. Yep.
yeah, just another way of spending more money. I'm just kidding. This is complaining too much, but
That I'm telling you, that's why I was so glad when this thing came around and they're like, as a coach, as a certified coach, you don't have to pay. I'm like, I'm in. I don't care if it's the worst time of year. I am going to take advantage of this and learn this concept. And again, I knew nothing about it. I literally had never even heard of it before. So I'm always eternally grateful to Randy for sharing that information with his coaches that were pro bono coaches for him at the Gratitude Network at that time.
no, and it's been really helpful for me and others. So, when we look at most significant difference in mental fitness practices before and after.
The most significant difference in mental fitness practices. Okay, so h- great question. So here's what I find when I'm coaching somebody and they say, I ask them, when we get to that part where we're talking about engaging your sage brain and about becoming present and being in the moment, I say to them, do you have any practices that you do today? Yes, I journal sometimes. I do yoga sometimes. I
Mhm.
have some practices that I do sometimes. And here's the thing, all of those practices are great. Meditation, yoga, journaling, all of that, it's all
Yep.
fantastic. The thing that I see that is the most significant difference between that and what we're teaching in the positive intelligence framework is, and I say this in my, I do a once a month webinar on imposter syndrome, and I roll a video that I did about a year or so ago, and I talk about this. All of those practices are great. Yoga, meditation, whatever. The challenge is that people feel like they have to plan the time to do it. And this
Right.
is why it's ish. Like they don't do it all the time because, well, I got to set aside time to do yoga. I got to set aside time to do meditation. In positive intelligence and mental fitness, when we get into that second muscle to build, energize your sage brain, we're talking about doing something while you're standing in front of somebody. We're
Yeah.
talking about doing something while you're at the meeting and someone just said something that pissed you off and the back and the hair on the back of your neck went up, and you had a stress response and you don't have time for yogas and mats and all. I mean, all that's great, but I need to calm down right now. You know what I mean? And so what the techniques that he teaches are in the moment, at the moment of the trigger so that you can get off that trigger and have a more positive response and not have some response that you have to that requires damage control.
That's right. Yeah. You know, and what's really interesting and funny, and I was just thinking about this the other day. I said, I have to believe, right, that Shazad was watching Martin Lawrence, right? When he goes, "Oosa, oosa." Every time he gets upset, he's like, "Oh."
Hilarious.
So it's PQ reps, right? It's like rubbing his hair
Absolutely.
in Bad Boys. And I'm saying, I wonder if he was watching
That's
watching
so
that movie
funny.
Bad Boys and Martin Lawrence is going, "Oosa," calming himself down, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. How do I calm down in this moment?
Right.
Sure, later I can journal, later I can do meditation, later I can do yoga. But right now, the thing has been said, my jaw is tight, my fists are clenched, and I'm having a very human response to this. I need to understand it and understand how to calm it down. And to me, that is the most significant difference between mental fitness practices or mindfulness practices that we all kind of understand a bit about and
Yeah.
what we're learning in mental fitness and positive intelligence today.
So how do we incorporate, mental fitness, into our toolkit, either as a coach or a client,
Mhm.
going forward?
there's lots of ways to do this, right? So I'll talk about the client side first. So, um, as a client, if you're looking to build mental fitness, the first thing to do is find yourself a mental, a positive intelligence and a mental fitness coach. Someone that understands this I call it a playbook, understands this framework, this language, and the strategies. Someone that understands it. And like you said earlier, Dave, I can be of service to our clients here that are listening. You can be of service to our
Yeah.
clients that are listening. So that's the first thing. Shazad also has a book. Right.
Yeah.
So there's the positive intelligence book. You can put the link to that here as well. That's a great resource to start. The thing that the book gives you though is insight. It doesn't give you the practice of building the muscle, right? And so when you find yourself a coach and you set up, your time with your coach, what you have is an accountability buddy, someone that's going to hold you accountable as you begin your journey in mental fitness. So even though you have the book and the book is a great resource, you've taken the assessments and you understand your saboteurs, your coach is going to walk you through those three muscles to build, give you the insight and help you with those practices. And and so the third thing, I guess the third thing, first thing is to find a coach. Second thing is to take those assessments and so that you can
Mhm.
understand yourself better. The third thing is if you have worked with your coach and you want what's next, there's a 7-week program that is app based that
Yeah.
you can join to help you build. I mean, it's like having a PQ coach in your pocket, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
I
Yep.
have found that people that have a PQ coach, like a live PQ coach, and they're in this 7-week program, have a lightning fast uh, approach to their outcomes. I mean, they get after whatever it is, those top three things that they wanted to address, whether it's self-sabotage, whether it's, a negative inner critic, all of those things, they get those outcomes faster when they have both of those things together.
And I can attest to that. As I'm getting out of bed in the morning or just before, my toes are
That's
wiggling.
right. You
The
just do
road,
reps.
feeling
Right.
my breath.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And so from a coaching perspective, there's the 100X program, and the 100X program is a grant that Shazad got. I don't know who he got it from, but I'm guessing he got it from the government at a time when that was appropriate, and he was able to do that. I won't get started on that, but
Don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on that.
he got it. He got and bless him, because
That's
he got this grant, and he has a global team of coaches that have been trained in this work. There are people from all over the world. And so when you join this program as a coach, you get trained for free.
Yeah.
You get trained for free. You get to go through the program, and then you have an opportunity to stay in the program under a membership that allows you to continue to build and fortify your understanding and your mental fitness. You get peer coaches. I mean, I have never, and I don't know if I told you this, Dave, but when I went through this program and I decided to do the annual membership, I looked at all my other certifications, all my Agile certifications, and I thought, what brings me joy
Yeah.
today? And what am I getting the most benefit from? I have paid for certifications for over a decade, probably multiple decades, and I have not gotten what I have gotten from this program on an annual subscription. So, from a coaching perspective, you have business development, you have peer coaching, I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's actually so prolific, it's like a lot. I'm not easily overwhelmed, but I'm like, holy smokes, there is a lot of stuff out here. But I appreciate that, and I feel like it's of a huge value. So for anybody that's learning coaching, here's what I would suggest. I would suggest learning how to coach first.
Yes.
Because one of the things that you don't know when you go to ICF and you're looking for a certified coach training, some of them teach you how to coach and prepare you to take the ICF certification. Some of them teach you a tool to put in your toolkit when you already know how to coach.
Right.
Positive intelligence is a tool to put in your toolkit when you already know how to coach.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to learn how to coach in this program. And so it's really important to make that distinction. So learn how to coach and then immediately dive into this program.
No, it has been helpful, and I'm super grateful for you introducing me to this program, and the others that I'm introducing to it. They're
That's
getting some
great.
value out of it. And I know I read the book a year ago. I think that's when you first started poking me about it. And I read, yeah, like,
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
read the book. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then I finally had time to go through the process. So, um, thank you for that. But anything else you want to just leave our listeners with before I close?
Um, I think, your questions were great. I think they kind of covered, the full spectrum of, what are some of those initial questions that people might have about this, whether you're a coach or whether you're a client. And yeah, I think one final thing I'll say is that, you know, one of the things that's not probably very clear is that in order to be able to get to your outcomes, whether it's getting a new job, whether it's, uh, you know, building or gaining or enhancing a relationship you have, or whether it's, whatever it is, we got to get our mind right. Our
Yeah.
whole life experience has everything to do with how we think about it. And when we're willing to take the time to really sort of understand, examine, and explore those thought habits and thinking patterns, it can make such a huge difference. You can keep your marriage, you can have great relationships at work, you can keep your job, so these are the types of things that, having better relationships with your teenagers, all the things. We have to get our mind right. And so this work really helps us to do that.
Well, thank you so much. Hang out so we could talk after.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and close. Um, so this is a wrap for episode number 3 of Coaching from the Desert. We explored the contrast between life controlled by saboteurs and sages, um, so we could have this empowered, resilient mindset by using positive intelligence, PQ. And so the shift itself, to me, right, from my experience, has been life changing. But it starts with awareness and practice. Um, so what's our next step? Maybe we go and I dropped the link in there. Go and take the assessment, right? So we can at least identify our saboteurs and we can strengthen our sage. And then maybe go through this free program like I did. And it's been, really, really important in terms of helping me to think about things differently and be aware of what's really, beating me up at times, right? So I want you to be sure to subscribe and share this episode with your friends and colleagues, and maybe leave a review and tell us, what you loved. And don't forget to tune in next time, where we'll bring you more excellent guests, real life coaching adventures, and some practical tips to help you thrive. So on April 17th, 2025, of course, we're going to have Carrie Sackett, and she will be our next guest. And we're going to talk about from me to we, shifting our group. And the concept is shifting our group and team coaching mindset to turbocharge client growth. If you want to learn more details about ICF Arizona, visit www.icfarizona.org to learn more about the coaching communities and the programs that's offered. So until next time, stay present, stay curious, and stay growing, because we're like coming from Coaching from the Desert. So thank you so much for tuning in. And hopefully we'll see you next month on April 17th, till we talk about From Me to We with Carrie Sackett.
My definition of coaching is helping people achieve their level of awesomeness.
I'm coaching from the desert. Coaching from the desert. Coaching from the desert. Coaching from the desert. Coaching from the desert.